Hey, hello everyone, Mekkah here. I am back with the Fire Emblem 9 Path of Radiance tier list review, where we're going over units one by one, and it's a lot of fun. I'm joined here once again by Typhoon Carter. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Hello.
Hello. So, we left off last time with a banger with Jill. We kept her in S tier like we should, and now we're going to look at the units that join after that, and this might be the last part depending on how much we have to say. As we go along, there's going to be less about units. There's going to be less to say about units than there is about the early ones, because there's less chapters to talk about, and also some of the units, the later they join, there's less you can do with them to make them good, I guess. There's less customization. So the last couple entries will probably be really quick, but there are a couple like really interesting units left that will take some time to talk about. And I believe the first and one of the most interesting units that we have today is Astrid, who joins right after Jill, basically, or probably one of the best units relative to how underleveled she is, because she's in a game that both gives you bonus XP, has skills like Paragon, and she joins in the defend map where she has easy kills in Ravens and maybe some other enemies running around on that boat. One of the easiest units to train, and one of my favorite units to train just because of how quick it goes. And she also has a Night Ward available to get a little more bulk for when she actually does enemy phase, and it gives her like more speed growth. So Astrid, even though she joins like maybe like 20 levels below your best unit, if not more, she's still so good at catching up that I think she's honestly, I kind of want to keep her roughly where she is. I think we kind of tiered units relatively to where we already did. Like the other units in B tier kind of got moved there relative to Astrid and Makalov. Like the fact that she's a paladin probably is going to hurt her a little bit more into the mid game, because this is around the time, like we discussed a couple episodes already, when paladins get worse relative to flyers fairly quickly. But I still think a unit like Astrid can be helpful in Path of Radiance just through the sheer virtue of, you know, having high movement, and in Astrid's case, having exclusive access to high rank bows like the Brave Bow to get some funny ranged kills. 2 times effectiveness is not very good against flyers, but you can still kill wyverns if you want to. It can still be useful, and just even if she's not actively contributing to the clear, can still do enough self-improvement to help along. So I think she's fine in B tier. I don't think I want to move her below Soren and Ileana, but I'm curious what you think.
The main thing with Astrid is that, so her bases suck, like, let's just get that out of the way.
Sure.
And like she only does like 2 damage to like the Ravens in her like join map, which like you really have to set up kills for her to get her experience. But the good thing is that she normally gets like a full level for each kill she gets, or maybe not quite a full level on like generics, but like on the Laguz she pretty much gets like 100 EXP. The only downside is that like she pretty much only does 2 damage because ×2 effectiveness. The other nice thing about Astrid is the fact that the amount of bonus XP she actually costs. I think I had a save file where she was at level 2.52, so like 2.5, half pretty much, and she only costs like 1,000 bonus XP to like get her all the way to promotion, which is like not too bad, especially like when you also factor in the fact that you can pretty much, if you're really trying, you can reduce that bonus XP cost on her a lot more if you're trying to get her to paladin in like just one sitting, pretty much. And the other thing is that when she promotes, much like how I mentioned with Nephany, her main weapon rank pretty much raises up to C at minimum. So you don't even have, so you only really need 1 arm scroll to get her to Brave Bow rank, which is super nice.
Yeah, I generally had her hit it naturally, I think, when I played, because it just used bows anyway. So it's like, what, 50 attacks to get there? I guess it's a little steep, especially if after promotion, because you're probably going to give her axes and then just give her a steel axe, which I think she has the strength for, and even if not, you just forge it down a little bit, and then she's fine. And you probably won't use the bows much when you have access for enemy phase, I guess, right?
Yeah, although I will say, like, generally her, like, I think her averages are like a little bit like worse, like on the 1-round KOing side compared to like some of her other fellow paladins. But like for the most part, she can pretty much make up for a lot of that deficit with Paragon, but it is a steep investment. Like if you're just trying to jump her straight to promotion, since her starting base level is pretty low, and she is at that really awkward time where like Paladin's like usefulness dwindles down, because ironically like her next map is like, you're recruiting Makalov. It's like, okay, sure, but like she's mostly kind of like just hanging back, self-improving, and then like a desert map comes up right after. It's like you don't. It can be hard for a player to immediately see how useful she is. That's what I find, like just right off the bat.
Yeah. Do you think she has a place in efficiency playthroughs though, or do you think she's just superfluous if you already have like a raised Kieran and then you have Titania as well? Like, do you ever deploy her in an efficient playthrough?
I think I deployed her for chapter 14 because I need an extra cavalier to do like a rescue chain to like get Soren towards the boss. At least like when I played, that's like what her use was, but I didn't really use her afterwards because I already had so many paladins. But like if you didn't really bother raising Oscar or Kieran, for example, then like she's perfectly fine, mainly because she's relatively cheap.
Yeah, I can see that. So in a way, it sounds a little bit like Jill for an efficiency playthrough where you already have your flyer carry, but if you're not using that primary carry, then she's a fine next candidate, I guess. It's like a...
No, it's just that, well, the difference is that Jill, even in an efficiency playthrough where you are recruiting all those, like, let's say you are recruiting everyone, like, she has a pretty important place, so, like, I think it's, like, a bit of a steep comparison to make.
Yeah, okay, not exactly like that. Like, she still has a role when Marcia as the primary, right? She's, like, a good secondary, yeah. But Astrid is already a secondary paladin, no matter what, yeah. Right? And then there's also competition for that role, so in that way it's a little worse. But then again, that's why she's in B, right?
Yeah, but I do think she's like a little worse off in that as a result. Like, I still think she's like a better choice than Makalov, just like simply for the bonus XP cost being much less.
Yeah, I agree. I also think bows are slightly more useful than swords, personally.
Yeah, like, I think in Maniac, it's a lot more... It has more... The bows definitely have more value, mostly due to sheer bulk of like wyverns and stuff like that. Like, it has its place, is what I'm saying, but I think like compared to the mages or like even the Laguz, it's like she kind of falls more into that filler category per se, is what I'm saying. That's where I personally stand.
I can see that too. I'm trying to justify it, but I don't really have any better reasons other than, you know, Astrid's stats good and Paragon good. I don't really have much beyond that. Like, I'm trying to, like, I don't have an efficient playthrough or super efficient playthrough ready to compare her to, but I'm actually thinking, like, I don't think there's
Chapter 18, it's like Chapter 18, you need like a bunch of paladins, which like in theory could work out, and then it's like there's not too many places for her to really stand out, I guess, is the main thing.
Yeah, especially because the deployment slots are a little competitive, and a lot of the maps she's just not optimal for, like you said, the desert and the Eat Rock map and stuff. Okay, so maybe around Muaram then?
Yeah, around that area, I think is like a little more appropriate for Astrid.
Alright, I'll just move over here. That seems fine to me, honestly. So before we move Makalov, I guess we can talk a little bit about, like, I think a lot of the things that go for Astrid go for Makalov as well, because he's also a little under-leveled. I think you said the Bexp cost between them is like 300-ish Bexp, but because one is Paragon, the other one is his higher level. And then Makalov
starts at level 10, if I remember correctly. I'm pretty sure he starts at level 10, but he still costs like 1,345 bonus XP.
Yeah, to get to promo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but especially with Makalov, you really want... If you're going to use him, you pretty much have to do a bonus XP dump to get him like up to par. Because like when you look at it, it's like Makalov at base honestly is like not all that good.
No, I haven't had him fight much. I usually kill him, but and
I will say, like, huge disclaimer for our favorite gambling addict with a massive debt. I remember the r/Fire Emblem tier list for FE9. The guy who was hosted tier list literally had to tell people to had to pretty much put like a Makalov clause where people can just say like F tier because he stole your waifu or something like that. Like, people hate him that much that like it got so bad that we got some people having to put clauses or disclaimers like that out for the voting process. It was hilarious.
I think it's funny. I used Marcia carry in my playthrough, my last quote-unquote efficiency playthrough, and I knew I could have just flown Marcia to the boss in that chapter and just won like there, but I actually moved her towards Makalov just to get him. And also because I wanted the villages, because I think the Vantage Village or the Adept Village is over there, right? I think the Vantage Village, yeah. That's over there. So I kind of wanted that anyway. I lost on like 1 or 2 turns from it. I'm not even counting recruitment costs anyway. Otherwise, like Jill wouldn't be in top tier, etc., etc. So yeah, I think. Do you think there's any utility to like Makalov having swords? Because I was thinking about it. There's not a whole lot of you. At first, I was like, there's not that many good sword users. So you're probably using like high rank swords, like I don't know, Brave Sword or Vekati, and you're probably not using that much if you don't use Makalov. Then I realized that Stefan exists, Ike exists, and Tanith exists. And I was like, wait, probably not.
Well, the thing is, Makalov doesn't exactly have the magic to pull off like magic sword strats either, and so like that's not really an option. And on top of that, you're pretty much using the Laguz Slayer. His weapon type's definitely the worst of all the paladins. The only reason you would actually, I find Makalov for efficient setting is in a scenario where, say, you don't recruit Kieran or Jill, and which is very possible in Maniac, given Kieran's recruitment condition requires you to have them escape the prison chapter. So like that, yeah. But in that scenario, the main thing is you would want to either statue frag Makalov or promote him to like do the rescue drop of Mordecai in 17-2 with like Oscar on top of that. That's like where most of his usefulness kind of lies in. But he's very much in the same boat as Astrid, except he's much more expensive to like invest into, on top of the fact that his weapon rank isn't like swords just isn't really that useful in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. Do you just use Forged Steel Axe instead for like his whole promoted lifetime?
Honestly, yeah. Besides like the occasional Laguz Slayer for like late game, but like those don't really do that much, and you have better options for dealing with those types of enemies.
That seems fair. All right, Makalov to Astrid, you go. Pair him again.
Yeah.
There you go. Anything else we need to say on Makalov before we move on to whoever's next?
As for our favorite gacha gaming addict who, yeah, what they won't tell you is that Makalov actually went in debt because he tried to +10 himself in Heroes. Except the downside was that he's not even in Heroes.
Yeah, he's trying to find himself. He didn't find it. I knew that was coming. I knew it.
Yeah. But yeah, like he's honestly pretty underwhelming. Like realistically, I could even see him going down a tier, but I also don't, because I think like the difference in investment costs should matter. Like it's that like important
between him and Astrid.
Yeah. And on top of the fact that, like, realistically, I can't find him being more useful than Mist or Riss for that matter.
So you're saying Astrid below Reese and then Makalov in C? Like top of C?
I could see that, honestly. I could see it.
I have trouble making the call because I have never used Makalov for like a whole run. I kind of want to. So one of the last units I've never used. But
the reality of Makalov... The reality of Makalov is he's kind of one of those units who seems good on paper. That's his whole thing.
Just never use them and you'll like him more. Alright, we'll experiment. We'll see if someone objects. I'll put him above Boyd here and I'll put Astrid here. Sure. Seems fine to me.
Yeah.
I can see it. Okay. So you've beaten the boat map and then you're back on shore for, let's see, the Makalov, and then what's next? Tormod, yeah. Tormod, the whole squad. That's another high investment unit, honestly. A little less underleveled than Astrid, but no Paragon, so I guess still kind of underleveled. And then joins even later. And I think the only reasons you want to like raise up Tormod is if you want a Sage with +2 move. That's basically it. And I've already said, like, I think the investment cost for Soren and Liliana is pretty high already. I just kind of assuming that it's worth it based on where we ended up them. But if I haven't experimented with them too much, but Tormod just seems like worse in every way for the kind of tasks that they have to do, because I think his stats are generally worse, especially if you don't have as much Bex left for him. Then again, he joins around a time where you maybe have more Bex, so maybe that could work out. And that's kind of where I run out of options. Like, I like the +2 move, but I don't think it's super great, because with the safeties, you're probably risk dropping them anyway to get them to the front line. So I don't think it matters that much. I kind of, looking at him now, I see a lot of units below him that have probably less utility overall if he was raised, but more utility for free without investment costs. And I kind of like them better now. And I'm not sure about all of them, But my feeling right now is moving Tormod down. But I haven't used them in a long while. I used them once, but it wasn't remotely efficient, so there's not much experience I have to draw on. So, what do you think?
Main thing of okay, so his main selling point besides the fact that he has celerity is the fact that he has Sea Fire. So this means he has instant meteor access at base, which can actually be relevant for him because it means meteor's the first siege tome you get. So this means that this is not a problem you have to worry with Soren or Ileana. If you didn't invest in either Soren or Ileana, Tormod can be a decent replacement. The main concern, besides the fact that he costs a lot of bonus XP to actually promote, is his staff rank, which you're going to have a lot of difficulty getting him to rescue rank for like the maps you really want him to have it. Like you can have him reach rescue in time for Clash, for sure. I think Chapter 24 is possible if you're hyper aggressive with like staff grinding.
Oof.
If you do try it, but he's pretty much like a fallback option that just so happens where, hey, I don't need to like burn an arm scroll to use meteor. That's pretty much his main selling point. And for like the other tomes, if you want to use an arm scroll, then by all means, because he gets D rank upon. Actually, no, he starts with he just gets D rank Thunder on promotion. And he already has D Wind, so you don't really have to worry about grinding those 2 ranks up. But it's a very steep cost for what it is, as like a substitute for Soren/Ileana. Besides rescue staff and stuff, the other duties that like you need a super sage to perform, he'll pretty much have no problem performing for the most part. He'll be a little worse off though, I will say that.
Because he like doesn't have the support that Soren has, for example?
Not even that, like it's besides like the supports and stuff, it's also the fact that his stats statistically it's just gonna be lagging behind a bit more on average. On top of that, like on top of the fact that like if you're just like doing a direct comparison of those 3, it's just that it's a little less weapon rank grinding that you need to focus on, because that is a legitimate issue in Path of Radiance.
Okay, so it sounds like there's, I mean, you said like he's good enough for meteor at base. I was like, okay, maybe there is some free utility there, but it sounds like he still needs to be raised up no matter what if you wanted to make him like any value, right?
Yeah, because his stats do honestly suck.
Yeah, base. He's like what, level 7 mage when he joins in chapter 16? That's not great. So do you agree he should be moving down then?
I think he's fine where he is, mostly because there is some actual payoff, even if, and like a super sage in the late game has its merits. That's like, so I'm perfectly fine with where Tormod is. If it wasn't for like C Meteor or like C rank Fire, then like I could see him going down a bit more.
Okay, that's fair. I can see it too. I mean, the units below him are mostly units we haven't really discussed yet besides Folk, so if they do need to move eventually, we can always move them over him later, but sure, seems fine to me.
Okay. And we also have Stefan.
Yeah.
Too.
Wow, we forgot Stefan. How in character?
To be fair, by the time he joins, the map is basically over, so they might as well join at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. I think Stefan is a unit that I think of him as a filler unit that you would like to deploy if you have an extra slot somewhere, like maybe as a reinforcement in chapter 17, where you have all your unit slots filled. But he never really ends up doing anything of impact there because, you know, foot unit with swords. And I think without the fake Kadi, he doesn't even one route most enemy types reliably, so in that sense, it's not that good to have him around, but he's like a nice option if you play like an Iron Man and you run out of units, or you just, I don't know, you just want to use him for some fun. He seems alright, but I've never really had a super explosive experience. The only time I really enjoyed seeing Stefan on the field was when I saw Rad play FE9 Maniac mode, 0% growth with no crit forge, and so we had to bring Stefan to maps to actually be there, because FE9 is very lacking in units that are good at base. Like all the good units are growth units, and so Stefan actually ends up fulfilling a good role there. But I've never been super impressed with Stefan. I think he's mostly famous for proccing Astra, and then he wastes like 5 uses of your favorite sword because he hits at half damage, and because he joins with the fake card, it's the main thing people remember about him. If they remember him, which we apparently did not. So yeah, I don't know. He seems fine where he is because I don't have much experience beyond what I just said. What do you think?
Okay, so the main thing with Stefan is he's basically a unit that joins in the mid game with pretty much end game stats. His speed is like pretty much overkill. Just for reference of like how fast he is, the only enemies he don't double at base, by the way, is Ashnart, Petrine. I think he barely missed his Bertram, and like a random Raven Laguz in chapter 28. So that's like 4 enemies I just named that he. So doubling is pretty much never going to be an issue with Stefan, and he does have the plus 15 crit bonus, which you can put to use with like certain weapons. And the fact that he can pretty much use any sword you want at base, it can be useful. I think he really shines more on 0%. I remember Espinosa actually used him as like the boss killer for Shiharam, where he had to like proc double ass. Like, I think it was a double crit he had to proc or something. It was like ridiculous, but like he has so much crit with Mekkah and like his class bonus that like it honestly like seemed pretty reliable.
Yeah, for sure.
Which was like hilarious. But yeah, his combat throughout like the mid game, if you're like planning to like go the route of rescue dropping him into like a bunch of enemies, he can hold his own, and his bulk is pretty passable because Big Kadi also does give him plus 3 defense. That is something worth noting, but he does also have low luck, so he can be prone to like crits every now and then if you like face an enemy with like killing edge, but he is mostly filler for the most part. I find that he's a pretty solid filler option for Heat Rock if you need like a good infantry unit.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Like, that's my 2 cents on Stefan. He can be pretty good filler, and really if you somehow have doubling issues for whatever reason, which can happen in like some of the later maps, then he can be fine there in a pinch if you like just really need somebody to do that. Yeah.
What I'm hearing what I'm hearing a lot is so filler. If you have doubling issues, it can be useful if you're in a pinch. But these 3 words generally don't apply to Path of Radiance when I play it. I feel like it's almost never that I'm in these spots where I need an extra unit or I'm having doubling issues, because all these units are so fast too. Like all these high tier units are also so fast with the Night Ward and everything. So
that is true. It's usually the Laguz where you can end up missing some like certain Laguz types.
Yeah.
Types like I met like because like you know how I mentioned. Yeah, the birds can be rather annoying. But up against bulky enemies, like if you're just trying to fish for crits, then that is an option too.
Oh, true. If you can't 2-hit kill, I might as well go for crits, I guess. That's true. Do you think Stefan's deserves to move a little higher then?
Honestly, I think he can move down a little bit, because the other problem is that there's not too many maps for him to really show off what he can do. I find that's the other thing too I didn't really mention.
Yeah, that's what...
Yeah, he has his moments though.
I feel like he's
but
just
not
like
many.
He's got good like traits in a vacuum, but I have trouble applying them. Again, I think if you put him in the Binding Blade, he'd be much better. Alright, so maybe below Haar then, because he also doesn't have that many maps, but I think his utility seems to be a little better. Like, if you count the maps that Stefan is useful on, he might end up like with the same amount that Haar is useful on, honestly.
Although Haar's usefulness is a little bigger, I'd say, but that's for Haar.
Yeah, exactly, which is why I would think maybe moving like this, or maybe below Volk.
Yeah, around that Volk level seems pretty fair.
Alright. Stefan then. And then we did Warm along with the Yellow Laguz back then, so that moves us into Oliver map territory. But I don't think you get any units there. Oh, I guess you get
Dandev.
Oh yeah, you do get Dandev.
Yeah, we get a Mekkah.
You get a free Mekkah. I tell you, on Donvet, not Depdon. Come on. A lot of people make this mistake. Don't worry. A lot of people make this mistake. I looked at Donvet's stats the other, god damn it. I looked at Devdon's stats the other day. Again, I was like, I remember him being slow, but I didn't remember his strength also being so bad. This unit is honestly so underwhelming, Path to Radiance, and I think 16 is really the chapter where even it doesn't matter how fast you're playing or how efficient you're being about your Bex, if you get to that chapter, you're going to have like an entire roster of units that are better than him in every way conceivable, and then he doesn't really catch up in any way. I played Path of Rains one time where I fed him literally everything, including like an occult scroll for Luna and boots as well, and that's when he became good, and that gives me a positive experience with Devdon, but I still don't think he's very good, and I can't really think of a map where you want to deploy him besides like maybe some kind of specific shove thing that you want to do, because I think he's slightly heavier than most units. But that's all I can come up with. I would honestly, look at this, I might want to move him down a little bit too, but it depends on like where the other units end up, I think. But I don't think I want to move him a whole lot. He seems kind of strong.
Realistically though, like Devdon is not, his base speed is like what, 9?
I mean that's maybe with the heavy spear. I don't think it's 9. I think it's like 13.
Oh, actually, you know what? Let me double check this.
real
quick. Of course, okay, it's 13, but yeah, that's still like at that point in the game, that's really bad because you definitely need like way more speed to be doubling enemies. Enemies been 13 speed because you're pretty much not doubling anything except like the scrubbiest soldiers ever. And on top of that, he doesn't really offer anything. And his weight is not really any major shoving category where he is specifically needed to shove someone that, say, Gatry or like other heavier units, or even Stefan. Fawn could like say shove someone else that for the most part, and there honestly isn't much use for him. I mean, sure, he has B lances, but like Brave Lance comes super late in the game, and honestly, there's just not much for him to do, or really anything for that matter. I think he's as underwhelming of a pre-promote as they get.
Sure. So, do we think we should move him down further? Because I think we moved Zahara and definitely specifically below him already. So I don't know if we should move really.
I definitely think he's worse off than say Zahara or Nefany for that matter.
All right. I think we said like, okay, we can talk about Devdon when we get to him, and that's why we moved him here. That's right.
Yeah.
I mean,
these are units
we have yet to discuss, so I guess we can like move him around that point.
Yeah, because I think Devdon is pretty much like should be the starting point of like a whole other like tier of E, because I think like Braum, me, and Rolf belong in F. Like that's kind of, and honestly, if you want to, you could even make an argument that Devdon could be in the lowest tier if you really want to.
Just because he adds nothing, whereas these add something. I don't know. Sure.
I think like Ulki, he's kind of in that same category of like Ulki and all those other units, but we'll talk about them when we get to them. Yeah,
sure. We'll have to find a time to make that little F tier you keep talking about. I was thinking we make it when we get to Laguz Kings, but that's like the very end, so maybe we should make it sooner than that. Maybe this is something we should get out of the way just to get it done. But I don't think he's F tier. I don't think he's that bad. Because if you're like, in a different sense, like if you put a gun to my head and made me use one of these units, I'm going to pick Devdon by far over like these on a level people.
That's true. That's like, fair.
I think that's another way to look at lower tier units, is if you're forced to use them, how badly does it impair you? And I think in that sense, Devdon is much better than a lot of the units you put down here.
I will say that like when you're ranking really low tier units, at some point it does feel like throwing crap on the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah, you're definitely just splitting hairs at that point.
Yeah. We have the Hawks and Reyson.
Yeah, true.
And Tanith. Because like chapter 18 has like 5 units.
Oh yeah, that's true. The whole squad is here. Let's see. I guess Reyson is technically the one. I think Tanith is technically the one that joins first. But whatever. Let's talk about Reyson, right?
Yeah.
The dancer. I think when I've played casually, I realized again, in my Iron Man especially, I realized how super busted Reyson is. Especially if you're not like going for LTCs, then Reyson, just taking your time with Reyson and watching him transform automatically, and then you just have 4 extra moves per turn, and you have all these Kato units that are really good that you can use twice every turn. It's honestly so broken. Arguably, maybe not better than the Flyers themselves, but honestly, at the point when he's around, more useful than Titania all around, because it's so stupid how much you can do with that. Like just making a little diamond around him and just revigorating them and kill like 4 extra enemies per turn or making a whole new formation after that. It's stupid. I can't even describe how good it is. But I also know that for LTCs, for example, and like efficient playthroughs, obviously making the most of Reyson is gonna cut so many turns if you're playing like that, because if you shove him far enough, you can just move anyone as far as you want to. It just destroys everything.
Do unconventional setups that actually involve like speeding up his Laguz gauge.
Oh yeah, I see the Clash 2-turn. So
no, not even that. It was the Chapter 24 2-turn, the Arrive map, because I think the strategy with the free rescues is that you basically have Reyson you dump a bunch of bonus XP into Reyson, right?
Oh,
and you have them try to dodge like a bunch of enemies. Oh, and also slap on a Tanith support if you can get that set up too, just to increase like the reliability of it, and then have them like dodge a bunch of enemies, and then boom, he's ready to go. But on that note though, with Reyson in his very first join map, I think that's pretty much one of the only times where using a Laguz stone is definitely recommended. Mostly because that map you have to cover so much ground, and you really want his extra movement and the fact that he can refresh 4 units at the same time. But even without that, he's still like super useful on his own. Just like being able to refresh units, and also the fact that he can at least bypass terrain since he is a flyer, technically speaking. It does suck he can't use the demi-ban, but
that'd be
still incredible. Yeah, he's still an incredible unit, untransformed. So like he gets even better, and LTC strats would go as far as like having him dodge tank to get him transformed, which at least speaks testaments to how how good his transformation is, to say the least. At least like if you're having him like actively be put in danger, it's almost like forcing the Magikarp to evolve into Gyarados at the age in a way.
It does say a lot that you're willing to like let each enemies attack Reyson instead of someone else, and then it still works out in the end. I think that is very interesting. I guess the main question with Reyson that I have in mind is he joins, like most dancers, he joins relatively late into the game, even later than most dancers. I feel like most of them join halfway. He's like 2/3 in, right? Although with more big maps ahead of him. So is this utility there good enough to stay in S tier because of so much availability? Yeah, you think
absolutely.
so? I agree.
It's way too good to like pass up. There's zero reason not to deploy him in any given map.
That's true. That still goes for a lot of like good units though, like someone like Kieran, which you ever undeployed Kieran, right? So I think that on its own is not a great argument.
The difference is that Reyson's like at least your 3rd or 4th best unit on a consistent basis, if not your 2nd.
True. I think arguably your best, but I usually put dancers behind the unit that they're dancing, especially if they're the best unit. Like I put them behind Marcia for sure on every map.
I think I was doing numerical rating, which I'll probably do a future video on, but I had like Reyson pretty much scoring 9 or 10s on every map, which like is much higher than like what my average score for a lot of units were, but that's not what we're here to talk about.
No, but it's a good perspective to keep in mind. All right, we'll keep him in S3 then. I was never going to move him anyway.
Yeah.
It's a rhetorical question, or I was just testing you.
Sure.
Okay.
All right.
Tanith then?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So another free utility unit that joins kind of late. I'm kind of happy with her in A tier personally, because while I feel that she's really, really good, she definitely feels more like a secondary compared to a trained Marcia. But there are some things that I think Marcia has more trouble doing. I like her use of the Sonic Sword. I'd like that she can one-run Wyverns with it. I'm not sure if Marcia can reliably reach those thresholds, and I think that'll be important in the Telegram maps that they're around for. And Reinforce, I generally prefer not to use because it makes the game take longer, but I do appreciate that it has its utility, especially if you use the direct command properly to distract certain enemies. I know the lead Falcon Knight can be very, very good on Maniac because he has stats higher than Tanith sometimes. That's very funny to me, but I think in English it's not that exaggerated how different they are. I think she's useful, but there's not much I can say about her that really adds a whole lot. I think there's definitely maps where a 2nd flyer or a 3rd flyer is obviously adds something, but I don't think she adds as much as the 2nd or the 3rd or 1st flyer that way. But I know she can carry if you really want her to. It's just you join so late, you might as well carry with Marcia or even Jill instead. So I don't think there's much of a reason to use her for that purpose, but obviously still very good. arguably, I think you could argue her versus Kieran if you really wanted to, but I think in the end, I think she comes out on top still. What do you think?
First and foremost, one thing I will say about Tanith is that when she joins at base, I do notice that she does sometimes have trouble one-rounding enemies, even with forged weapons, because their strength is a bit on the low side. That is something to take note of. But with that being said, for example, she can be a perfectly fine substitute boss killer for, say, Chapter 18, because you can just enemy phase Homasa, due to the fact that Nasala doesn't even move until very late into a turn, for example. So like that's something where you could get some mileage Tanith, like just as a substitute option. But as a secondary or third flyer, she's still very, very good for the most part. You need another flyer to like help you, like say get the rescue village, or help you just with killing Shiharam in like Chapter 20, or being the unit to like arrive, and she can do that if you want her to. And even in maps like say Chapter 21, getting to Ena boss kill, having flyers are pretty much your best option there. And also worth noting is that Tanith's like base resistance is particularly good for her over someone like Joe or Marcia, even in that map, especially with pure water, like just being able to deal with like the status staves a lot better than other units. And also like the earth support, it has some like pretty neat applications, as I mentioned with Reyson, like being able to, so if you're trying to like force Reyson to transform early, even having an earth support can help him like with that process much easier. And the other nice thing is that her weapon ranks are generally pretty good for the most part, although a downside is I don't think she can actually use silvers at base, which can suck, especially in a, although if you're just getting her to use javelins, then she should eventually reach it, with that being said. And on the topic of reinforce is like super useful for a map like Chapter 18, where you can pretty much ignore the bottom half of the map, because the squadron that Tanith summons will do the job for you. And it can be super useful as bait, like even for more general purposes.
Like if you don't want to kill particular enemies, but you want to stay away from your units, basically, right?
Yeah, or even just them weakening an enemy, or just distracting an enemy from, let's say, a vulnerable target, like say Reyson, for example. Or you don't want too many units to attack Reyson, for example. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is interesting. I do like that. I also think it has like great applications for casual play, because I always praise summons in FE8 for being disposable units and being super great target practice. The Pegasus Knights are a little less frail than summons, like a little less, but they still get the job done in that case sometimes. All right, so she's staying where she is then?
Yeah, I definitely think she's better than the Paladins, mostly because a flyer has so much more value. Oh, and even map like Eat Rock, where you need all the flyers you can get anyways.
Yeah, that's definitely your standout map, I think, where you definitely need more than one. Like all the more the merrier, basically. Like everyone is not a paladin is and good at combat is getting deployed there, I feel like, at this point.
Yeah, but your flyers cover the most ground.
Yeah, by far. It's not even close. They move so far.
Yeah.
Okay, Hawk Laguz. So Janaff is chilling somewhere in here.
C, right next to Tauroneo.
Oh, I see him. And then Ulki is chilling in D. I guess we could just discuss Janaff first, because I do feel like they're fairly different, just because Janaff has a transform gauge to instantly transform and like do stuff, whereas Ulki is untransformed at the start of the map. But I've never really tried to make use of them, so I don't have a whole lot to say on them. I just don't like managing gauge at this point in the game with a one-range unit that's not very good at combat. But because they fly, I feel like there could be something to them. I really like them in Radiant Dawn, but this is not Radiant Dawn. They're very, very different in that game. I just Janaff is like, instant transformation gives him some more utility, like a little bit more movement range, combat utility, etc. But I don't know to what extent they can do anything. So I don't know what to do with these. I guess I'll just hand it to you, because I've never really made try to use them.
Main thing with Janaff, obviously, is transformation gauge is a big sell. It's a big factor to his viability as a Laguz unit, mostly because Laguz units, the starting gauge can play a huge role, as I stated before, with Aleph. But his base speed is pretty good. It'll let him double right off the bat, and he doesn't have to deal with ban penalties, which is super nice. Him being a flyer, in terms of, it's just more of the general flyer applications, but I remember Zorbies was doing a run with no mounts, so like no Pegasus Knights, no like Paladins, and Janaff was like a huge part for him mostly because like he was the only flyer who had actual stats and whatnot. Like that was like a huge part, but that's not like relevant to his actual placement for a meantime.
No, but it's funny.
But yeah, it is funny, but like him being the best unit in a scenario like that is kind of hilarious, but that just reinforces the narrative of flyers being centralizing, even in a restricted run like that. But anyways, before I go on too much of a tangent, Janaff, I think I remember in Clash I had to use him for like the shove train because of the fact that there was like a random tree just placed there that only he could fly over and just like go like shove Soren. But he's basically another unit. I think he can actually I don't remember if he can shove Marcia, because Hawk Laguz have pretty underwhelming weight for the most part. It's like, okay, it's like 21 weight or something. That's not really enough to shove Marcia at that point in the game.
That's unfortunate, but they really just need to shove Reyson to be useful, right?
Yeah, shove Reyson, and he can provide combat in a pinch. Like in Chapter 18, he can be perfectly fine for dealing with the Wyverns on that map.
Really? I remember his attack being really bad, but does he like fort KO?
Yeah, it's like 4-8 KO, but if you're doing like the summon strats, then he can do just fine in conjunction with those units if you don't trust them for whatever reason. But he can be, but being able to bypass terrain to shove someone like Reyson does help, though. I will say that.
Yeah. And
just like not really costing a demi-ban works a lot in his favor.
Yeah. He can. Just a quick question for my reference. I remember him in this game. I wasn't sure if he could shove. But now that you've confirmed he has, he doesn't have Canto afterwards, right?
He doesn't. You need to have the Night Ring, which from like Naysala.
Yeah.
But like that's like involves like just not ending the map right there and then, and not risking losing Bex.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay, so sounds like you might have a case for over Tauroneo, maybe Elincia? Or
I definitely think it. Okay, I think Tauroneo should be a blower, but I do think he's better than Tauroneo for sure.
Okay, we'll just switch those two. But then like Elincia becomes like more interesting, I guess, because
Elincia is a interesting case discussion, I think.
Okay. But you do think he's worse than Volk then?
Yeah, I think he's a little worse off than Volk.
Okay, we'll just move Elincia when time comes then, I guess. Then he should be fine.
Yeah, we'll move Elincia when the time comes.
Sure. Alright, that's fine. Then Ulki sounds like, from what you just said, if you feed him a Laguz Stone, he can almost do what Janaff does, except that it doesn't even work because turn 1. I guess you can give him a demi-band, but you don't even want to do that. So that's kind of cringe. It sounds like Ulki should be even lower than maybe, because like...
Yeah, I think Loki is legit. Ulki is legit one of the worst units in the game.
Sounds like it. Because can he do anything untransformed then, if you don't give him that demi-band?
No, he doesn't really have to show benchmarks to actually really do much that like your other units can't just do.
Okay. So he goes into these nether regions over here.
Yeah. I think he's that bad.
Yeah.
I mean, he does have 10 weight, but like, which is like average, but that's whatever at that point, because you can just deploy any foot unit you really want to at that point in the game.
That has huge redundancy. Okay, so real quick, I made that F tier. We didn't actually put anyone in it, so would you say all these go in that F tier? I feel like Devdon belongs in E if you're doing that.
I mean, I think Ulki, Braum, Mia, and Rolf all have a legit case of being an F. Okay. Actually, Rolf and Mia, I think nobody's gonna argue with that for the most part.
I've seen people argue Rolf, believe it or not, but yes, I think you're right.
Yeah, but I think most people would at least understand why.
I would hope so. Okay.
But right, trying to remember who joins next. I think
we did the whole squad for 18, right? So it's Tomasa Gaming?
Nobody joins in 19. I think Calill was next.
Oh yeah, from a base convo. She joins before or after Largo? Before, right?
I think no, definitely before Largo.
Okay, yeah. Oh yeah, Largo's Rock, right. Yeah.
Yeah, Largo's conversation literally involves Calill just pulling up.
Yeah. I was trying to
just
remember
like, hey, you've made a great choice.
Yeah, I actually have the list right here just to make sure we're not doing another Stefan here. It's Tanith, Reyson, Ulki. Shinon rejoins, I guess. Calill, Tauroneo, Haar, Ranulf, Bastian. Okay. Okay. So Calill, we've talked a lot about sages being good, and most of them had an opportunity cost to become good. And then Calill was basically one for free with all the siege stones, which sounds really good to me. So it sounds like she's gonna at least move upwards a little bit. But on the contrary to the other sages, she doesn't have staff utility that the others can get through grinding, but still they can get it. And then her combat also seems like significantly worse if they're being trained, like at doing enemy phase heavy duty lifting. So that seems like the big difference to me. But from what I've heard, there's a lot of cases where like her long range magic can be useful. So maybe she can move a little bit. She seems alright.
Yeah. Calill, as Mekkah stated, pretty much has no opportunity costs in terms of just combat, and her base stats actually at base pretty much hold up pretty well for most of the game. I think if you're willing to like feed her a spirit dust and give her a handful of levels to like improve her magic, then she can definitely one round some stuff. Oh, maybe slap on a couple forge tomes, because the other thing she has over say someone like Sorn is that she has an actual strength stat for starters.
Oh, so she can use knives. That's genius.
Yeah, not even knives. It's like the fact that she won't actually get weighed down by her fucking
Trust
toes.
me, I know I'm not that bad at the game. Please forgive me. Okay.
yeah, like knives suck, but compare someone like Tormod. Like Tormod has legitimate staff rank troubles getting like to where he actually needs to, because like you now have to get him to ward rank and physic rank, which I didn't mention earlier, but like that is something that like Tormod doesn't even really have that much of an advantage over Calill unless you hyper aggressively grind his staff rank and find like the most ridiculous ways to just get like staff exp. But ignoring, so he doesn't even have that much of an advantage over Calill. So I definitely think Calill is at the very least better than Tormod. And the only downside is that Calill just joins really late, but she does make the most out of the maps that you can use her in, if you do choose to use her. Because statistically, she's roughly on par with Soren and Ileana at the same level, if I recall correctly.
Oh, wow.
Give or take, which is like hilarious. But that kind of speaks to Testaments, because like they lack in other ways. Oh, and I think for Calill, because Siege Domes weigh like what, 12 or something like that, if I remember correctly. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, because she has like base 8 strength.
I don't remember, but I can look it up real quick. Let me see. FE9 Meteor.
Right. Okay. It weighs
Meteor.
11, 13, and 10. Oh wow. Yeah. So if you really want to, you could actually get her to double enemies with siege tomes if you really wanted to.
That depends.
Which is like,
yeah, depends. If an enemy's like in the way for something far away, then I guess that could be very useful.
Yeah, which is like kind of hilarious, because that's something that Sorn definitely is not gonna be able to quite do.
Yeah, strength is probably like 3 at that point.
Yeah, or like even just 1.
Yeah,
because it's so bad. And then Ileana, okay, slim chance, but she has like attack speed issues. So Calill honestly holds up pretty favorably, besides the staff utility that she is severely missing, because IS actually realized how good Penta and Sally were before most of the community did.
It sounds more useful than Makalov to me. I don't know if I'm reading that right or not.
Definitely more useful. Actually, yeah, I think Makalov sounds a lot worse the more we talk about some of these units.
It's more the comparison with Boyd that I have trouble with, because Boyd is so different in every way, like in opportunity cost and availability.
like the thing is, like Boyd could at least, like in theory, be a carry for Eat Rock if you like do the rescue drop.
Yeah, his late
option.
game utility is like good combat wise if he gets there.
Yeah, if you want to go that route, and he still has some early game utility, albeit with reliability issues at times.
So maybe something like this then at the very least, and then this is like arguable.
Yeah, it's funny how like Makalov sounds worse and worse with each we talk about.
We do another round, he ends up in F tier.
Yeah, and it's like people's hate were just justified.
All right, we'll leave it at this then.
Yeah.
So that's Calill. I think is Haar next? Who's next?
No,
oh, Tauroneo.
Yeah.
Tauroneo.
Tauroneo should definitely go down.
Yeah, you mentioned that. I don't remember how we ended up here, but I'll try to justify my case anyway. I remember that I was like, well, he's mid-game, his combat is fine. He's just got to rescue drop him to someplace.
Mid-game.
I don't even know, actually. I don't know how he ended up here, because I guess the idea that I had in mind back when I tiered him is like, okay, if you get into resolve range, then he can probably one-round some stuff. And that's like, that's all I can come up with. Yeah, he's too bulky for it. He just doesn't die to anything. Even magic, like, takes forever to kill him, or get into below half. So, I don't know. I think if I had to tier him again, I probably... Well, a lot of the units here haven't been tiered. Okay, I can see why I put him here now, because all the units in D tier, they look worse in other ways, but I guess I put him like around where Shinan is, I guess.
Oh, I actually... Okay, so I guess I'll put my 2 cents here.
Yeah.
One thing I will say is that Tauroneo, the area you recruit him, he can literally one-shot some of the frailer enemies in the area, like the Merms and the mages, but that's about it. And I guess if you're... Because he can't even shove someone like Marcia, even with frag. Actually, his weight is like even worse than Gatry and Brahms, but which is like hilarious. But I guess he's old, so he's shedding a little bit of that fat off.
He's trained a lot.
Yeah, but besides like being able to one-shot some generics in his joint map, there really isn't much for him to do. On top of the fact that he's way too bulky to actually do it. Oh, I guess he can be a sleep target bait if you haven't gotten rid of the bishop, the sleep staff bishop in chapter 21. Although realistically, you probably want something like any of the sages, literally just snipe them before you even make a charge into that room.
Does he get targeted because he's low deployment order?
No, it's because of res.
Okay.
Yeah, they actually do target. I remember in my run, some of my units' res was too high for so the bishops actually just didn't target them. That's more of a fun tidbit, bit more than anything.
Mm-hmm. And then after that, it's like if you train Gatry, I guess. A little bit.
Yeah, you're really pulling straws here for what Tauroneo really does. But there is some actual stuff he can do if you're at least in his join map, but after that it's like, man, no. Just D, maybe even E.
Wow, that's kind of low. A lot of the units in D have been undiscussed. I know that some of them are moving down definitely. I think if you compare it to like Nethany, right? What would you say to that?
Okay, Nethany. Okay, at least with Nethany, you could, if you're really trying hard, you can solve her weapon rank issue by just promoting her, because like I said last episode, she gets C lances instantly.
Yeah, so she becomes something if you put like work into her, right?
Yeah, and on top, like her base level honestly isn't that bad for Vex for a time she joins, and like you can do Wrath Vantage strats if you really want to for her, because she comes with Wrath, so, and Vantage, your Soren and like Ilion doesn't necessarily need it, but it helps them out a lot more. So it's really more of a luxury for most units that are contested for that skill, if we're being frank here.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
yeah.
So maybe just like, I don't know about E tier though. I don't know. Like, I guess he's comparable to Devdon in a way, although he has like utility in his joining map, whereas Devdon doesn't really.
Yeah, but also because I think a lot of the D tier should be a lot lower. But
yeah, I'm trying to ignore like all units we have to discuss and all units that are probably going to move down. So it's really just these guys. Yeah,
that's fair. Okay, and who's right after this again? There's chapter. Haar
thing here. Yeah, finally it is Haar time. If we, you get the
Ranulf.
Come again?
Haar and Ranulf.
Ranulf. Yeah, I guess technically Ranulf does join first because he's the starting map, right? Whereas Haar is midway through. So it's Ranulf. Yeah. Another unit I don't have much experience with, but I have a couple of anecdotes that people told me. One of them was that Rengar was like, well, this is around the Pitfalls map. I started undeploying Titania and bringing Ranulf. Said Rengar, I think it was in his fixed growth thing, because Ranulf could do more, which I found a hilarious thing to say. I remember comparing Ranulf statistically to Moram and finding him favorable, but this is also the point where Ranulf, for combat, you don't really use Laguz much anymore, if at all, so it doesn't really mean a whole lot, whereas Moram has a lot of utility before that point. And then Ranulf, I don't remember him one-running enemies. I remember him being like acceptable against enemies, but not so good that you would use him, like expose him over like your carries. So not to that extent, but like okay. And then he has gauge to deal with. I don't think he transformed instantly in this map, unfortunately, or at least in this game. So yeah, shucks. And then not great demi band candidate probably. I guess better than Warm at this point if you're doing for combat, but if you're doing shoves, you probably still want him to demi band. So
okay.
I don't know. Go ahead. This is all I got for Ranulf.
So with Ranulf, I remember he has around 24 weight, so he's definitely not shoving Joe anytime soon. But he can like be a shove. Okay, you can do something like do a trade chain with Ranulf and Moram, for example. Like trade the demi band around, because you can equip and unequip. So he has that going for him.
That's funny.
For him to perform shove chains on someone like Marcia, which is like super nice. And on top of that I mean, okay, realistically, demi band, okay, when I still think Moram is still your best demi band candidate, but Ranulf is not a bad second choice.
Okay,
if we're gonna be honest, but he's mostly gonna be involved in shove chains that are going to be shoving Marcia or Tanith around, mostly because he actually has to wait to pull it off compared to someone like Janaff or Ulki, but at the same time, he doesn't really provide that instant transformation gauge combat, which really sucks for him, because if he had transformation gauge, I think he'd be rated a lot more favorably. He has his uses, but he's really filler at that point, mostly because you have actual deployment slots to compete for. And honestly, from what I find, it's like the Moram left Mordecai, that usually is usually enough, because a lot of your shove chains are probably more focused towards Reyson at that point in the game. So that is one thing I will say, and his late join time doesn't really do him much favors, so I can definitely see him going down. Yeah,
it sounds like it
but
too.
But he has but there is some stuff you can do with him, and again, not the worst demi band candidate. He can go down either to like top of D, mostly because his late join time and just not much for him to do, I find.
Yeah, intuitively, I think like below Shinon, like between Sylph and Shinon, might be the okay spot for him. It's like this, where the people do something, but like very limited kind of thing.
Yeah, look, I'm gonna be honest, like around that range, that's kind of like that Gatry, that's your calf throwing stuff at the wall, hope it sticks.
Yeah,
as I said before. Okay. Like I'm honestly fine with him at the bottom of C, top of D.
Yeah,
it really doesn't matter to me at that point.
I agree.
If I'm being honest, it's hard.
It is splitting hairs a little bit. Yeah. Interesting discussions, but these I think these ranges are like interesting discussions. It's like, they could do this, but this is better than this. Whereas this is like, you don't really care about these kind of things. It's usually something like that someone else can do as well. So how do you even weigh that? It's like, I don't really care. Okay, that seems fine to me. It was a little bit more than I thought of Ranulf, so it's kind of nice to hear that he can do some things. Okay.
Yeah.
I am really curious about Haar, because the way I've thought about Haar mostly is like, he's a flyer, but he's not going to be your best combat flyer, and how much do you really need him to carry someone around? I think if this game had a lot more Seas maps, then I could see him being a little bit better than I put him, because they need someone to carry Ike and someone to do combat as well. but you also get Savior in this game to put on your carry, and you can just carry Ike around with your carry as well. And then a lot of maps are just arrive or kill boss or stuff like that. You don't even care about lifting Ike anywhere. And if you're not lifting Ike anywhere, then like how really valuable is a flyer? Really, and he unfortunately joins after Eat Rock, which I feel like would be the main map for him to stand out. So
no, he joins Pitfall. He joins.
Oh wait, he joins. Wait, he is there, right? Is he there?
Yeah.
Oh, never mind. He is there. Wait, what am I confusing him with then? I could swear he joined after. Maybe it was. I don't even know. Okay, never mind. That
Wait,
thought.
Geoffrey?
Yeah, maybe.
Geoffrey
joins for Eat Rock too. He just sucks there. I don't know what I was thinking of then, because I was so sure he joined after that. Well, either way, I don't remember his combat being particularly good. I think he misses like speed benchmarks and like he's bad res. But maybe I'm wrong on that.
Okay, so 17 res, or no, not res, speed. That's what his base speed is, off the top of my head. Is usually on top of like the Brave. It's usually enough to double some generics. Like maybe not the faster generic enemies in the game, like the Laguz enemy types, but you can sort of make up with that with his Brave Axe that he comes with, because he does have pretty good weapon ranks. And being okay, so he's a male flyer, so he's even fatter than Joe. So like you can forget about shoving him, but that's fine because you're not expecting him to carry to be like your main flyer anyways. So that's like not as annoying as it is for like Joe, but that's besides the point. But in Eat Rock, he really sticks. I think that's pretty much the map where he really sticks out because of the fact that he can actually cover the ground. He's probably your third or fourth best. Okay, probably like your fifth best unit realistically. But you need all the flyers you can get anyways on a map like that. So he really sticks out. And someone of similar comparison is Geoffrey, because their performance across most maps are relatively the same for the most part, if we're being realistic here. And also because he joins like super late. Okay, like that's kind of a problem with most of the units we've gotten to that have that kind of problem. And his stats, it'll get by just fine for the most part. And if for the more casual audience, if you're trying to transfer his speed award, good luck with that, because like you need to like dump a speed wing into him, but that's more of a side note.
Yeah. You really have to, because you can just cap other stats and then you get enough speed and Radiant Dawn that way. Yeah,
but it does save speed wings, but that's besides the point.
Yeah.
point. But basically what I'm saying is his base stats are enough for him to get the job done, pretty much. To do like what you need him to do. His attack speed is like okay. It's workable. It's just don't expect him to double faster generics.
Yeah. But like a Wyvern Lord, like he would double that, right? Then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like slower enemy types, he'll get by.
Okay.
He'll get by, and just like weapon ranks and stuff, that's like super useful.
Okay, sounds like kind of the area he is doesn't seem that off for him then, because it's like a couple maps, but it's fine, like what he does.
You could make I'm not gonna lie, we've been shitting on Makalov this whole session. I think Makalov starts to sound even worse.
Yeah.
He does with each person we pass by.
Yeah, with Makalov it's like he's around for so much, and like he turns into a decently good paladin for like an okay paladin for much longer than Haar is around. He's like around for twice as much, right? Basically. Yeah,
but paladins just aren't as useful.
Yeah, they just aren't. Whereas Haar is like, I don't know, is he?
He's
I guess he's good in Eat Rock.
His class. Yeah, his class type really saves him. Like, you need another flyer for chapter 24, then you can do that. You need another flyer for chapter 28, where you have a bunch of forest and you kind of have to fly over anyways. Like, sure, why not? You know, he's a good filler.
True. It does sound like more like Calill than like the play season, I think.
Yeah.
Although Calill is like useful for more maps, obviously.
Yeah. Although for different reasons, but yeah.
We can do this. This is fine with me.
Yeah, poor Makalov.
Yeah, poor guy. I actually no pity for Makalov, honestly.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Right, favorite tax respecter.
Gambling tax. Okay, that's Haar covered. We have Ranulf,
Bastian and Lucia.
Yeah, my favorite units for sure. I think when in the good old days, when people didn't look at unit stats, they just kind of looked at what they did with the unit and tiered accordingly. I think Bastian and Lucia always end up at the bottom of tier lists because, well, they would compare them to units of the same class, be like, oh, they're worse, obviously. And nowadays, people
they're still kind of underwhelming just for different reasons.
They definitely are. But I remember Bastian, for example, I remember in the draft race, Glimpich got a very late Bastian pick, and he did like a lot of meteor work, just for like different context for sure. But it shows that he has like some merits. I'm curious like how many you can find, but I don't think I'm moving them a whole lot. But the fact that they like, especially Bastian, can do some stuff for free might be worth considering a little bit, like a tiny little bit higher maybe. Lucia, I don't know. But Bastian, yeah, maybe. But he doesn't have staff utility, unfortunately. That sucks.
Bastian's like base speed for the time he joins is pretty bad. It's like comparable to Devdon, and his is considered kind of bad by the time he joined. So, like, imagine like a plus 3 speed difference, but with like almost an 8 chapter gap.
Yeah.
Yeah, like don't expect him to double anything at that point in the game. No,
it's just chip damage. It's just a chip bot with like long range tome options.
Yeah. He's basically a emergency siege tome option. Like if you desperately need someone to deal chip damage on like Merchant. Actually, no, Calill arguably does that even better because they have basically the same base magic.
Yeah. The way I see it is like, oh shit, I needed to kill that one enemy, but I missed with one of my units, so now I need to like 10 damage to finish him off. Oh, Bastian is right here, I can just use him. That's the type of utility I would do with Bastian, generally.
Yeah, that's pretty much all he's limited to, is like Siege Tome chip, which can have its uses for like certain bosses, as I noted before, because some bosses suck to kill, like Hafid or Bertram. Bertram because of Rune Sword, and Hafid because he has fucking Miracle.
All right, I remember that.
And has Night Ward for like some stupid reason.
Gotta have that plus res. It's very important. Think about it more. I think he might be fine where he is, like below Tauroneo or around Tauroneo's level. Because Tauroneo does like one thing in his joining chapter, and Bastian has like that little chip every now and then.
Yeah,
maybe
like realistically, he's definitely worse off than all the other stages.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I'm not gonna put him over Calill, obviously, but
yeah,
I don't think he's better than like the top of D right now.
Yeah, that sounds about right, to be honest. And then Lucia should be like in F tier if we're being real here.
I think with Lucia, the thing with her is that she doubles for like almost.
She looks hot.
Yeah, that too, I guess. I was thinking more like in terms of unit utility, but sure. Like I think her attack is just insufficient to kill enemies, and like I think she might forward kill some enemies, but maybe kill some mages. But jeez, that's about it.
She's even. For reference, she's even worse than Stefan, and that guy joined in chapter 15.
Well, to be fair, like Stefan's stats are really, really good. That's not a really fair argument to make, but like,
yeah, that's true. But
I think the real stretch is like, I think our combat is like around Folk level if you train Folk, maybe.
That's really bad.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah, like there is no reason to ever deploy her.
Yeah, maybe like so.
Okay, I'd also like to point out she has like F sounds about right, and like sure she has Urfa Fiddy, but who are you supporting with?
Yo, Elincia Bastian support triangle gaming.
Oh my god!
All right,
yeah, fine. She has like 15. Yeah, she has like 15 strength, which is like wow, that's not cutting it at that point in the game. Enemies are way too fat. She joins at just really bad time.
She does.
Just joins way too late.
Yeah,
like you're at that point where like you're probably thinking about, oh man, I really need those magic units to like actually do shit for me, or A for Ike.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like a justification why she wasn't D to begin with, but I don't remember one. I know, I remember, again, draft race reference of some, I think Kirby Massa drafted Lucia at one point. And
I guess if you're desperate, you can try and have her use a magic sword if you're really desperate.
Yeah, I know he did something with her that I think might be applicable to this, but I can't think of what it is, so I'll just keep her in F tier for now.
Okay. I mean, if you're really, yeah, like a magic sword, probably the only reason I gave in Seer escaping F, but hard sell. I can't really see her doing much if we're being realistic.
No. I don't think she runs wyverns with it, right?
I mean, I'd love to hear what people would have to say.
Yeah, me too.
For those who,
yeah. It looks like I'm moving her down a lot, but I know these guys are all gonna move down a little bit. So
yeah. I just think like the disparity between how bad some characters are in BOR compared to how good some characters are here is like really big.
Yeah,
that's like really what it is.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's see. We might as well round it off because the last few units are not that much to talk about. So I guess let's talk about Geoffrey because he is he also joins around this time. And I initially, my thought process for Geoffrey was like, okay, joins pretty late, but he's pretty good at that point, so he's kind of neutral for most of the game, and then he starts helping you out and he seems kind of fine. So around C tier seems around fine, but I know for a fact that a lot of people want Geoffrey to move down. And I can see why, because his joining map is Eat Rock, and then, like we said many times before, that map, it's a great opportunity for units to stick out that map, because it's a route map, so everyone wants to help, everyone can help out. But if you don't have the movement to, you can't really help out. So Geoffrey isn't great there. And then after that, he is like, he's a filler paladin, but like we said, paladins are not their worst anymore, because a lot of the maps that are bad for them are past us. But he still can't help very much. He can help a little bit in some cases, but not too much. So he's okay, but not great. So I can see him moving down a little bit.
Okay, I did actually use Geoffrey for chapter 27 in my LTC run, but I basically what I did was I baxed him because like Paragon actually does come in handy, handy for him reaching like certain, like just to help with against like certain enemy types. So like if you equip him with the Night War, you can get his speed to up to par to say like double what the cat Laguz on that map, which is like super helpful.
This Clash?
No, not Clash. No, it's the Black Knight map with like half it.
Oh yeah.
Resolve because you
it's good there.
Because you kind of need to dedicate a squadron of people to pretty much go get that resolve scroll, because like there's like a bunch of enemies in that room that you have to break through to get to that chest. So like Geoffrey can actually be a pretty good filler. That is the map where I would say he has a slight edge over Haar, but like not by much, and it's mostly because of Paragon, like just like being able to brute force your way to like reaching those benchmarks, like those doubling benchmarks, especially with like the Brave Lance. If you really want to, you can like double arm scroll him to have him use Brave Bow if you don't have anything better to use those arm scrolls for. So that's also an option. Like if you just want him to like Brave Bow a Laguz or whatever, so that is something he has going for him.
Yeah.
Or although like lance and bows is kind of an awkward combination for a paladin, I will say that much.
Yeah, no axes.
But the Brave Lance he comes with has its merits, and for the most part he's honestly kind of in that same boat as Haar. I think Haar is it's definitely better than Geoffrey, although I think the real argument would probably be whether or not he's better than someone like Makalov or Tormod. I definitely think he's better than Volk. I will say that much.
I can see that. Volk's utility is limited, like we've talked about before. There's only so many chests that he realistically helps you get when you have all these chest keys.
Yeah, like sure he gets you boots, but even then it's like you're not using him for much else besides getting treasure.
Yeah. It's basically just boots when you think about it. And
shade.
I could put him around Makalov's level. That's okay with me, because when you think about it, like by the time Geoffrey's around and you're using Makalov, he's realistically going to have roughly the same utility, right? There's going to be differences, sure, but they'll be somewhat equivalent. But then Makalov has like everything he does before that builds credit before Geoffrey is around.
I think the interesting debate would be whether or not Geoffrey is actually better than Makalov, I think, at this point, not gonna lie.
Yeah, I think that's a debate, but I don't think it's like I don't think it's a one debate.
It's a proximity cut.
Yeah,
that proximity is fine.
Fine,
roughly where he is.
Yeah, and I think you could argue like Tormod over these, or you could argue Stefan over these somehow, but I think it's roughly correct at the very least. That's the most important thing, as long as it's not outrageous. Funny that we ended up moving him up, because I thought he was going to go down a little bit. I remember you wanted to move him down. I think. Oh no, he started higher. I think we put him at B initially.
Yeah, it's because he was in B, and I thought he definitely should go down a peg.
That's right. That's why.
I don't think he's that good. I
No.
think he has his merits, but yeah.
Yeah. That's fair. Okay, we're
Alright.
almost done. We got Largo.
Largo.
This is a really interesting unit, I think, because I don't have too much experience with Largo. So what I have is mostly what I've like seen of him initially, and then like theorized the rest. But he seems like a unit you really have to try out every once in a while to really know how good he is, because it's just so hard to like get a grip on him on paper. But I know like high HP, high strength, crit bonus, so relatively good bulk, and then eat rock utility. That's pretty nice.
He does have pretty spotty accuracy though. That is something worth noting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like especially against like the cat Laguz, I think he only had like 60 something displayed hit on them in Eat Rock when I was trying to get him to use a Brave Axe to pretty much brute force his way past enemies.
Yikes.
Yeah, it was like a very specific cat, but luckily I also had Stefan like just as a failsafe, safe to actually kill that cat on that route map. But Largo is mostly there for Eat Rock and for Clash Filler as like another shelf bot, because promote infantry movement, which is about as good as you're gonna get as far as movement types go besides Laguz. And the nice thing is like, you can use the Brave Axe at base, which is super, super nice for him. And just being able to have that crit bonus to kind of make up for his middling speed, because I think his speed's roughly on par with someone like Haar, if I recall correctly. But he's very much a filler unit at his core.
Yeah, he seems a little mediocre. Definitely not as good as like a trained Void, but still like some spots where he can be useful here and there. Do you think he should move at all?
I definitely think he has a little more use than Soph. He's around that Ranulf spot. Maybe you could. It's hard. I mean, you could make the case that he's around that Shannon Gatry.
Yeah.
Gatry, Ranulf. I think he's comparable to someone like Ranulf, because I did mention how like Ranulf at least is like a decent demi-ban candidate. Pretty much your other demi-ban candidate option besides Morum, if you're not gonna. But that's also factoring in the fact that you can just have like like the demi-ban trick, where you basically trade it.
Yeah, so you doesn't need to hoard it anything. You just kind of trade it around.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like super significant debate then whether one of these is higher or not. They seem about the same then.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm definitely gonna try him out again next playthrough, because I know his growths are really good. So at least it could be a funny like late game funny unit.
That's also true. True. Yeah, he has like 70% strength or some shit.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Yeah.
Unit. Best berserker. Okay, that's so much Largo. Oh, Elincia, I almost forgot about her. Oh, she seems really interesting, because she
comes right after.
Yeah, basically, she's like, I never want to use her in the playthroughs I do, because they're like Iron Man playthroughs or draft races. So I always pass up on her, because it's like, I don't want to get a game over and have to lose all this time / process / money / whatever. But I'm really interested in what she can do, because she's a flyer with A rank stats, which is so hilariously stupidly good. Sure, it's only for a couple chapters, and sure, she's really frail. But the amount of things you can do with a unit like that, I think, are like insanely interesting. But I've never really tried any of them. I know, like, obviously you rescue someone like Reyson or carry forward and they can get further, but I'm curious just how much she can do. Right now, she's in like C tier, because I don't know exactly how much it is, so I'm just going to put her in C tier, but I actually don't know whether she should move up or down. Instinctively, I want to put her down, because like she used to be rated very poorly, but maybe she's actually better than that. Please let me know.
I will. All right, so biggest problem with Elincia is that she barely exists. In Clash, she's kind of a liability besides like physics staff in a pinch, keyword in a pinch, as in you're getting real desperate. She exists for chapter 27, where she can be decent there for either him earning a rescue so you can get a rescue off, because I remember rescue uses can get somewhat tight, and having A rank state, like being able to use almost every staff except for Asher's staff at base, is super nice for fortify, all that stuff, which is more applicable to casual play. The big thing is that she does not exist for chapter 28, which is a map that she would actually be really good in. But the problem is she doesn't exist there. She's not available there.
That sucks.
And then there's Endgame, so she only has 3 maps of availability. Like, no joke.
That sucks.
Yeah, but like really, I do remember like deploying her just for like specific purpose, like just for staff utility. But like a lot of that staff utility is very minor, or it's stuff that you can easily replicate with like other units. And sure, being able to use rescue without like any investment works in her favor. Like if you really want to boost her range, then you can give her some Vex. The only downside is that she basically is a promoted unit. She's treated as a promoted unit, so it can get real expensive if you're really trying to push that rescue range into her. You can forget about using her in combat. I'll say that much, because immediately only has like 8 might and enemies are like so fat. I think at base she's doing like practically no damage.
She is. I tried using her. It's not fun. Actually, it was fun because, it was funny.
Yeah.
But it wasn't pretty.
Oh, just to put into perspective how depressing it is, I think I remember my 100% gross LTC. I bumped her all the way up to level 10. She had like 18 strength or something. She did like 0 damage to like the endgame dragons with a meaty.
Okay, but that's endgame dragons. Come on.
Yeah, but that's still hilarious. Like how much I dumped into her, and she still can't do that. But that, I think even at max strength, she only does like 1 damage.
Unfortunate.
But that's like not. But that's not the main reason why I'm thinking of moving her down. The main reason is mostly her problem of just not existing and not being that significant. Again, like, yeah, the staff utility has its merits, but I can't really put her in C, or she's like D at best.
Yeah, it sounds like Shinon and Gatri are like arguable with her already, based on what I'm hearing.
And her magic isn't very high, so you're not going to be healing a lot with her anyways, if we're being realistic. It's mostly rescue and Hammer. That's why you're using her.
Sounds better than like Zyhark, at least, and that's about it.
Yeah, sounds about right, really. It's around that Zyhark, Largo kind of level.
Yeah, seems about right. Unfortunate. I was looking for some epic rescue strats.
Yeah, but like in Clash, the other big downer is that you actually can't adjust her starting position.
Oh,
so you can't even like get her. Yeah, so that's like the other big downer about her. So you can't even like go set up a massive rescue chain to get her, and then like go back to base and like dump a bunch of bonus XP into her and like juice her magic up. So like that's not even an option.
And for Elincia, man, that sucks.
Yeah. I mean, if you're really desperate, then I guess you could try and boost Reyson forward, but you're pulling hairs here, man.
Yeah, I did mention earlier there was a Clash 2 turn where I think someone trained both Elincia and Reyson to like really high level so that they could rescue each other, basically, get each other forward so far that they could seize on turn 2, which I thought was really amazing. But that's something else.
Yeah, I'd be more... Oh, did Elincia like save your Ike or something?
Yeah, Elincia saved your Ike and then killed the boss, I think. It was.
Yeah, I'm a little skeptical on those benchmarks, but
the odds were not good. Like it was Reyson dodge tanking and transforming, and then like getting a quadruple vigor on like Ike and Elincia so they could kill Bertram together or something. It was very, very scuffed.
Oh, okay. That definitely doesn't sound like a 2-turn, because I feel like that's like a 3-turn at minimum if you need Ike and Elincia to kill together.
I don't know. I'll find the video. It was a very funny video.
Yeah, because like Ike has to seize, right? That's my main skepticism.
Let's see. So turn 1 they boosted each other towards like the late part of the map, and then they probably ended up. Let me think here. Reyson danced Elincia after she rescues Ike, and then drops Ike, and then Reyson transforms, and then Elincia attacks Bertram. Ike attacks Bertram, dance for both. Elincia kills Bertram. Ike seizes. That can be a 2-turn seize.
Sounds a little...
It was a very sus clear, but I think a 2-turn can happen that way. But it's beyond the scope of this year. It's just trivia at that point. It's just trivia. It's just funny.
I need to see that for myself.
Yeah, it's
I'll have to figure it out. Okay.
All right. So now we get to the famed Laguz who have been chilling in D tier for way too long, probably. We can get the dragons first, right? So I've always tiered Ena and Nasir on the following basis. Ena is there to be in, like, come again?
They're basically the same. They're basically a stat check.
Yeah, basically. So I think Ena is the more useful between the two, even though Nasir has the lower stats, because if Nasir exists, then your Ike was good enough to beat the Black Knights, and by proxy, that means Ike is good enough to beat Ashnard, probably. So you don't really care about Nasir's utility. Whereas if Ena exists, Ena exists if your Ike is too bad to beat Ashnard, either because it's 0% growth, or your Ike pretended it was 0% growth and never got any stats. And in that case, there's some legit utility to her. But that said, she's not very good at killing Ashnard. You need like 5,000 resources to do it anyway, so it's still not that great, and it's only one fight. And then, other than that, I don't think these two are good. I did actually use Ena in my last FE9 Iron Man. She was surprisingly fun to use. I wouldn't say she was good, but I gave her Resolve, and it was like, I'm actually having a lot of fun with this unit, but I don't think she was very great. Like, I definitely, combat-wise alone, based on that, I put her lower, actually. I don't know how to weigh the Ashnard fight. I definitely think you can make an argument that Nasir should move down even further. But I haven't used these units too much, so I don't have much else to say on them. But I think they were funny, at the very least. So how do you rate these guys?
I treat them as if they're the same unit because they pretty much do the same thing. And as I said before, it's a glorified stat check, man. Man, like, it, to me, like whether, like, sure, I have no problem putting Ena above Nasir, but just on that basis alone, I can't really see, like, say, a whole tier. I just put them right next to each other. That's how I see it, personally, because, like, Nasir's, like, transform bonuses are, like, much higher than, or, like, much better than Ena's, because, for, like, some reason, though. And also, because, like, Ena, I think it's, like, you need, like, 2 speed wings or something like that, and an energy drop on, like, 0% to, like, beat Ashnard. So, like, she's, like, okay as a failsafe, but that's really all she is, a failsafe.
Yeah. So are you tiering them on the basis that your Ike is going to be good enough to do that by themselves? Because I don't know, that seems like the only relevant thing, right? The Ashnard fight for them. Would you agree?
Yeah, and also because I think it's a terrible fight, but that's not.
That's
besides the point. Yeah,
it is, but it's there, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting fundamental question, to say the least. But personally, I think they're both in E tier because, like, because I'm of the thinking of both of them. I'm thinking you're at least giving them a fair shot. On that basis, like, if you want Nasir to be your Wrath Resolve guy and say you don't want to take Aether off Ike for whatever reason, like, you can absolutely do that. That you can get away with it. You know what I'm saying?
I guess that's one way to look at it, yeah.
Yeah, because, like, what do you do with Ena? You can pretty much do the same thing with Nasir. The only difference is whether or not you won that shitty stat check of a fight.
Well,
and there's also the idea of you can just run away from the fight too.
Yeah, and then you get Ena. I just think the context where you get Ena is more relevant. Like, the context where you get Ena is so much... It adds a more weight to the dragons, I think. Because, again, if you have Nasir, then you don't need him. That's basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I guess... I guess there's a universe where your Ike is good enough, and then, but you don't win the Black Knight fight, and then you have Ena, but you don't need her for Ashnard at all. In that context, Nasir becomes a lot better, relatively speaking. Yeah,
it's a stat check, and a very spotty stat check, for that matter. That's like kind of like my thinking behind it, but I would understand. I can understand, like, why somebody might rate Ena, like, say, much higher than Nasir on that basis. I get it, you know.
I also get your perspective because you say stat check, but I don't know if that's what you mean. But the way I interpret that is, like, the game checks if your stats are good enough, and if they are, then this happens, and if they aren't, then this happens. But the problem with the Black Knight fight is that is not how it is, right? You actually get unlucky, you still lose. So in that way, it's not really a stat check. It's like an RNG check and a stat check in one, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. RNG plus stat check. It's like you're not even guaranteed to win. You're fishing for A for procs.
Yeah, and in that sense, I think Nasir does become better because, like I said, in that case, it's possible to have a good Ike, but you also still have some level of demand for a dragon for the Ashnard fight. Like, it's the same. In that case, they're the same unit, like you said.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm fine with moving both to E tier, by the way. I don't really care
Yeah.
about whether they're above or below
Yeah.
Dev done.
Yeah. And then I'm gonna be honest, the Laguz King should
Yes.
fucking like, okay, Gifka, the only reason you bring him is for transfers. Like,
Yeah.
okay, because like he
transfers here.
Yeah, Nazala, he like Ashnart heals more health back than damage he actually does. So like, come on, come on, that's so bad.
Yeah, it's like you
Head
use him in
especially.
conjunction with Ike, but come on, that's not good. That's not good.
Yeah, and then okay, Tibarn's like literally the only royal here that can actually make a case of doing anything, and that's in a world where your Ike is too awful.
Yeah, so
yeah, because I remember Espinoza actually using Tibarn to like chip down Ashnart to like make the Calill more bearable for Ena to pull off like that, and that also requires like a nuanced shove chain, but realistically, like all three of them don't really offer much in the grand scheme of things, because like if you didn't win that first phase, because they only show up when you win your first phase of the fight.
on hard
If you're
mode,
good enough, yeah, like I'm using the same logic here with like Ena and Nasir that you mentioned, right? If you're good enough to win the first phase of the fight, you're good enough to win the second phase of the fight.
Exactly. Like I've said this before on the go to tier list, but the whole purpose of these kind of units is usually to, like, if you don't have the way, if you can't beat Ashnard, then you have these three. That's the way that you work in normal mode. But in hard mode, that doesn't work because you beat the first fight. So yeah, do you think they're worse than the F tier scrubs in that sense?
Okay, Nazal is definitely the worst one of the three by a mile because he can't even do what he's theoretically supposed to do.
I agree.
Because like like I don't think they deserve their own tier, but I think he's worse than Rolf.
All right, goodbye Nasala. I mean, I killed Nasala with Rolf, so this is very fitting.
Gifka is I don't even know. I mean, sure, he does the most damage per hit, but he has trouble actually getting there.
Do you remember if he does more than Tibarn after Tibarn doubles? Wait, does Tibarn double?
I don't remember. I think Gifka does like 20 Ashnar per hit or something like that. Nah, but the problem is actually getting him there.
Yeah.
There in the first place.
Big lion. Can't move him very far. Or he can, but he can't fly. That's the problem, right?
Yeah.
I guess the question is like, are they worse than Rolf, really?
Oh wait, no, Ashnar. No, he doesn't. Yeah, Gifka doesn't double Ashnar.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and then Tibarn at least can actually. I don't even remember if he does. Tibarn has like 27 speed or something. Yeah, I don't remember. But honestly, like they're both pretty. They really don't do that much. But Tibarn at least he can actually get there.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
He makes
but
it there.
But if you're taking more of your time, then I guess Gifka can be a help. But like that's if you're taking your time, as in you're getting really RNG screwed or whatever, or you're not doing enough resolve for whatever reason, and just make it harder on yourself on what's an already awful boss fight.
So you're saying Tibarn there's a world where he's useful, sort of. It exists, which doesn't really exist for Rolf, right? Technically,
no. At least I could say there was an actual scenario that Rolf can be useful.
Oh yeah. Oh, the whole pure water thing with Meteor. True. Okay, bye Tibarn.
I mean, like realistic. Yeah, they're just all like bad.
Yeah, they're all bad. That was never the question. All right, I'll just do this.
Yeah.
Crop it down a little bit, and there it is. That's the list.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've been. Do you still think Marcia is? Do you think Titania is still better than Marcia?
No, I don't actually. That's a good question. Okay. I do actually think Marcia's better now because I've been playing the game a little bit more since we last talked, and Marcia is like I said this before recording. Marcia felt like I was using a Pegasus Knight with 100% growth from like other GBA games, but in Path of Radiance without 100% growth. So she was that good. Yeah, I actually think Marcia's better now.
Okay.
Like, put the red heads next to each other. Sure.
Yeah.
Is that the last grievance? The last promise?
And then and where do you stand on Ike now, all things considered? That's what I'm curious, because I think that's what people have been curious.
I I mean, he just promoted for me. I haven't really done much else with him. He killed like 1 halberdier since he promoted. That's it. So I still need to play more before I can make up my mind on Ike. I think what you said about him was all valid, and I think you could move him. You could argue him anyway here. I think if you're gonna move him, it's gonna be down probably. But
yeah, I think he can move down a little bit because I've been looking over some revisions for like my own personal thing which I mentioned earlier, but yeah, like I think Ike's mid game is definitely, yeah, I think his mid game bumped him down a lot more, so I could definitely see him being a little bit worse, like bottom B. I can see him being worse than someone like Marum, possibly.
Yeah, I'm completely fine with moving him below Moram, but I don't know about these. This feels so wrong. I guess Astrid just moved here. It doesn't feel wrong to move him below Astrid, but
yeah. And then there's also a question of like just how big the actual gap between Astrid and Makalov is, come to think of it.
It's really just 1 tier gap. Like they could be roughly equivalent, these guys. I don't really mind it very much personally.
Okay.
I just think the video has been very long. That's all I'm saying.
That's fair.
So I think we can round it off here. And if a future revision happens, then it always happens. I mean, there's always there's got to be the possibility of like a big tier list merge at some point, and then maybe some of these guys can move.
Or just new developments.
Yeah, big new meta developments. Keep me posted.
Yeah, okay. Of course.
But I think we can round it off here. I'm actually really happy with how this one turned out, especially because there's only 1 line per tier. That's always the most important part of the tier list, I think, is to make sure everything is 1 line to make sure it fits on my screen.
Oh my god.
But no, this makes a lot more sense now. Thank you so much for making more sense out of it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a pleasure.
It's been fun to hear all the explanations, all the little trivia things, to all the actual meta strats that worked out, and both strategies that work well for casual players and people who actually want to efficient size their playthroughs, and hearing like what these scrub units can do and what distinguishes one good unit from another. I think those are really interesting things to talk about. So yeah, thank you, and thank you all for watching. And you'll see what game is coming up next. I think you'll like it a lot. But until then, peace out. Goodbye.
Goodbye.